Greetings, my name is Jesse. I'm no longer going to use Ledesma. This is, as it says, today's April 10th of the year 2013. This is my new series on Jesse on Life, and this is video essay number 2. As I was putting this together, again, I do meditate on subjects, and I do believe the information is valuable. And you don't have to spend um, thousands of dollars on therapy if you can learn how your personal um, mental health processes work and how you can help yourself. And yesterday I said that I don't believe that I need to go into this in depth seminar on why it is that we feel the way we feel. Um, However, today I'm going to try to just have an overview. And one of the things that I was meditating on just as I was coming to prepare this video um, is that some of us have been hurt so much that we feel a need to get even. We want to have that conversation with the parent where we tell the parent off because they never loved us, they never showed us love, they never made us feel good. Or the spouse or the boyfriend and girlfriends that have left us throughout the many years, or whatever that source of pain and suffering is. And let me go ahead and tell you that it's not in our best interest to have that conversation. And the reason being is that one, we're not going to resolve anything. The person that we want to, um, stick our hooks into are really not interested. They were not interested when they were supposed to be parents, and they're not interested today. So you're basically going to have an angry conversation with a person who just doesn't want to hear it, and who may even believe that they're not at fault. So you're going to cause yourself a whole bunch of horrible emotions, and you're not going to get to any kind of resolution. And it is important, I think, that we understand that this is more an exercise about ourselves, about us taking control of our life and moving forward to a life that's more agreeable, more pleasant, and that we can enjoy. However, I feel obligated to tell you, as I mentioned in the previous video, and I've mentioned in other videos and other written articles that I have written, um, there are forces in our environment that do nothing but condition us to the negative point of view. The funniest thing, and excuse me, I'm gonna drink something, so I'm trying to reduce the coughing. But the funniest thing is, I was watching a movie yesterday. Don't need to name the movie. It was a horrible movie. It's just another one of these waste of digital space. But the main character is a very ugly person, just sees everything wrong. He's against corporations and the man and this society that is all about materialism and financial gain. And in one of his scenes, he starts, just going off about the new think positive religion, and he just starts to ridicule it. And I'm sure there's a reason why God would put me in front of my, electronic devices to see this foolish movie going off about everything, destroying and knocking everything that I believe in. Then the reality is that we will spend a lot of time listening to music, and we will enjoy the music, but we won't sit down and listen to the lyrics. We'll watch television programs, movies, and we really will not listen to the dialogue or the messages that they are um, giving you as you're watching this. Is not only in rhetoric, dialogues, words, spoken words, but it's also in symbolism. See, the fact that the main character is not married, has problems in relationships, has a certain attitude about um, women, or maybe has an attitude about men. You see, Hollywood seems to be turning the tables now. It's no longer men complaining about women. Now it's women complaining about men, and that's the whole movie. And in that, you know, the way they attract attention, and I'm trying to get to my point here, and this is right here what I'm gonna hopefully attempt to highlight. Okay, the way they get their attention is with lights and sounds, visual images, women in bikinis or maybe no clothes at all. And we today have been so bombarded by these messages that we spend our time looking for these cheap pleasures. That's what sensuality is. Well, no, sensuality is just living by what you hear, you see, you taste, you smell, and you touch. A lot of people think that sensuality has to do with sex, and it does to some part, but basically it's just getting pleasure from the senses, whether it's a drink, um, you know, certain sounds, music. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying music, but I think that most people today are pleasure seekers, and we're all pleasure seekers. But we want to have a balance because we're not animals. Say you put down 100 pounds of cooked steak in front of a dog, he's going to eat all 100 pounds. He doesn't care. He's not going to have any limit. Um, Most people know their limits as far as how much they can eat. And I see people who are not only, let me see if I can give you an example. I was sitting in my, job site, and I have a tendency to keep a good eye on people because people are potential threats. And I see this little car pull up, and the driver jumps out to pick up the person that, you know, there to pick up. And he had the radio on loud, but apparently it was in commercials. But all of a sudden, his song starts, and it's a song that the driver likes. And it's a little Pee Wee punk, 18, 19 years old. And the guy starts to jump up and down and dance right there out in public, where he should be picking up his person, getting in the car, and leaving. No, it's a good time to to dance. And the reason for it is pleasure. You know, a lot of pleasure comes from the approval of members of society. And our society is rather vulgar. I was watching something I should not have been watching, uh, and I won't tell you what it was. But I like comedy. And back before a certain spiritual, enlightenment occurred in my life, I really didn't pay attention to the words, the vulgarity, the what is it? I'm thinking of the words, not necessarily. But now I do. And when I was watching this, I was like, this is nothing but trash. I mean, there would have been a time in my life that I would have not minded the bad words, but you realize that it really is it is toxic to the human spirit to constantly be bombarded by these messages. And you think that they're not, you think, oh no, well you have to go to these trashy videos and no, Dancing with the Stars, American Idol. Let me think here. What other stupid program is 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 popular? Well, I really can't say because I don't watch television. But the the what is it? The innuendo. The second meaning behind the verse or the sentence. And really people laugh. It's like the president, the current individual in the president in the office of the president of the United States of America. It's a very vulgar person. He's not a man of honor. He's not a person that knows how to give honor to the office of the president of the United States of America. And a lot of people go along and laugh with him, but they don't understand the danger to society. And one of the reasons why people are always looking for pleasure in our modern day society is because they don't know how to get, what pleasure from where they should have gotten pleasure from. Our society just decided that marriage was no good. Plain and simple. All you hear in society is marriage no good. People going off about divorce, and by the way, the divorce rate is no different today than it was 2,000 years ago. The societal, dynamic of people shacking up, no different. And we're making a big deal of it. Now, it is important for society that there are strong marriages, strong families. See, the excuse me. I know that people don't want to hear that their reason that they're struggling is because they weren't indoctrinated into the idea of marriage. They weren't indoctrinated into the idea of parenting. They were not indoctrinated into the idea of really uh, engaging in a romantic relationship where it is real emotions, where you care about the person, where you want the relationship to be a relationship throughout the ages. The modern, you know, what can I call it? Um, the modern idea of romance is it's sort of this fusion between sex and safe emotions. We will only give as much as we believe cannot harm us. And we have people who are, for the most part, engaged in relationships that they're not really engaged in. They're there to the point where they feel safe. And when they start to feel threatened, scared, then it's time to close off and move on. And the point of my video essays is that we don't have to live a life of filled with pain and suffering. That we can take control. See? And today's video essay decided just to do it on certain elements of our environment because they do influence us. The co-workers influence us. They influence us because there's a need to be accepted. And sometimes that need to be accepted is that we will go along with ideas that really are not in our best interest. Sensuality, healthy sensuality is acceptable. But when all you're doing is seeking pleasure for the sake of seeking pleasure, you really aren't living a full life. I tell people we're not um, unidimensional. We're not only supposed to be a plumber or a police officer. We're supposed to be friends, and we're supposed to have relationships with our brothers and sisters, and we're supposed to have a special romantic relationship with someone of the opposite sex. And we're supposed to look for recreation, and we're supposed to look for entertainment and diversion. And a lot of modern day depression comes from people who honestly don't know how to live a multi-dimensional life, a life where there is abundance, not only in activities but in interests. And a lot of that comes from this society that tells us, this media society is the better word, that tells us that we shouldn't invest in marriage, that we should not fall in love, that we should not raise children with love, that we should not be involved in interacting with our children. I will never watch those programs of dysfunctional families. I think Modern Family is one on ABC. I don't know what the one on NBC is. I've heard people talk about them, and it just doesn't attract me. It's not the kind of entertainment I like. But then I remembered that I used to watch Married with Children, which, okay, it's a little funny, but when you look at it, it is disturbing in the messages that it gives to the individual. And people think that they can see these messages, these negative messages, and that it will not affect them. I wonder how many people can sit down and write down their personal life philosophy, what their goals are, what they're striving for, what it is they want to accomplish. And then I wonder if they can answer the question why these are their goals and why is it that this is what they want to accomplish. We should always be striving for a peaceful life. We should always be working for something enjoyable, pleasurable. And as much as people think that routine and monotony is bad, it's only bad if we think it's bad. Say, because a lot of what we're going to do is going to be routine and 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 rather boring. My business, I'm not an employee. It may be a small business, but it's rather boring. But I find things to make it interesting. So make the time go by faster, make the time more enjoyable. The people at the job site is not people I want to know. Excuse me. They are just not healthy human beings. In fact, they're the kind of people that I tell people to avoid. They're very dark, sick. I'm even going to go to the point of saying they're evil human beings. But that's beyond the point. People don't like tradition because they think it's boring and because they think you're selling God. And there's nothing wrong with God. Um, and there's a certain attractiveness of knowing that you're actually involved in something, that you have set a goal and you are setting objectives. See, I can tell you why people get divorced. It is not for the reasons that people believe that people get divorced. People don't fall out of love. Um, yes, they're immature, but they're immature for a reason. And the big thing is that it's just immaturity. But one of the principal reasons why people don't stay married is that they never really took time to get to know the person they were marrying. Because the messages in movies and in television, even in music and in literature, is that you're supposed to meet them on Monday and be married on Tuesday of the same week. And real life just doesn't work that way. Now, there are psychological processes. People who don't have interaction begin to suffer, begin to feel pain, and they want to stop that pain. And they believe that by just latching on to somebody romantically will end that pain. So they do that wherever it is. And it's both. In our society, it's both people that quickly hook into each other out of desperation because they don't like the sense of depression that they're feeling and they want to stop it. And they think that it's beautiful that they found somebody, and it should be beautiful when you find somebody to share your life with, who's your friend and companion, and is there for you during the good times and the bad times. But the reality is that when you don't have an idea of what you're doing, when you latched on to somebody just out of desperation, that's not real love. And eventually, you're gonna start recognizing that it's not real love. You're gonna start recognizing that the person doesn't have a real interest in you, and you don't have a real interest in them. And when there isn't that emotion, so the first thing that got you in trouble was that you didn't, or at least you were not able to receive emotion from life. Again, because our modern world doesn't tell people about dating. Our modern world doesn't tell people about courtship. Our modern world doesn't tell people about how to flirt. People think flirting is a bad thing, but it has its purpose. And when you're not being told about courtship and dating, and getting to know the person you're going to marry, and then about having an idea of what kind of marriage you would like to have, understanding that children cost money, and that family is something good that brings a lot of joy and pleasure, and you're able to love your child loves you, and you're able to help your child be a good person, and you take pride in the accomplishments that you have had while raising your children. I had this person in my taxi, and just telling me, well, how do you explain this parent who had four children, great children, and one mess up, one serious mess up, you know? Because I was telling her that really does come down to the parent. And the question I gave her was, well, that family was pretty darn lucky. Because what you're telling me is that the parents had no clue whatsoever how to raise children, and the proof is the one child that is always getting in trouble. To me, a person who studies psychology, what apparently happened is that the four good children had good experiences and were able to maintain themselves under good circumstances, but the one kid wasn't able to do it. See? And a lot of parents think that all you got to do is be in the home with them, feed them, take them to school. And I'm sorry, you got to have an interaction. See, parenting plays a part in traditional values. Marriage plays a part in traditional values. Voting, being an involved citizen, plays a part in traditional values. Not because I'm telling you how to live. I don't care what television programs you watch, what magazines you read, whether you have sex before marriage or after marriage. But the conversation here is, how is your life? Are you suffering? Are you hurting? Are you trying to get something out of life, but you're always finding yourself, smacking yourself against walls? And I'm going to tell you that if you're following the modern tradition of sensuality, you're always going to find yourself in a place where you recognize you're not getting out of life, but you want to get out of life. Yeah, you had pleasure, you drank a lot of liquor, you had a lot of sex, you ate a lot of cake, you saw a lot of movies, a lot of nudity. But when it comes down to it, you're not fulfilled. And you're not fulfilled is because you were made to find your true happiness, your true joy, and your true love in traditional values. And once you recognize that, then you can start pursuing the life that you are supposed to have. Now, as I said before, life is toxic for a lot of people. As you're growing up, the people in your life are tearing down your self-esteem. And when you decide to take control of your life, recognizing you're equipped because you can think, you can organize, you can plan, you can act. When you recognize that you really are your own worst enemy with your negative attitude, because attitude matters. Attitude contributes to mood, and the reason you're suffering is because you're having these horrible emotions, which are called moods. And you should want to take, an interest in yourself, and you should want to be positive and learn how to be positive and optimistic and realistic, and start taking steps towards the life that you want to live. The kind of life where you wake up and instead of dreading your existence, you start enjoying life with music, with healthy music or literature. You know, planning and organizing is a healthy exercise. Setting goals, having objectives, recognizing that you're more than just an animal that excuse me, that drinks, eats, smells, listens, touches. And it's ultimately your choice because nobody can force you into anything. I cannot force you into anything. And the end result is that you had a great life experience and that you're a healthy person. And instead of you feeling bad, you're beginning to start to feel good. And the admonition that I give people is you're going to have to invest a lot of time because it doesn't happen overnight. And when you decide that you as a person are a valuable person, you're a good and decent person, and you deserve to be in charge of your life and take care of yourself and work for a pleasant life, you're then going to have to define which life is it that you want. And you can very easily pursue the modern life of sensuality, which is going to give you more momentary pleasure. Or you can realize that you were made for more. There are a lot of people who are not worth your time or not worth my time. But the world isn't filled with only those type of people. Say, the majority of people understand that they want their life to mean something. They want their life to be something special and important. And when you're feeling bad, and the idea comes to you that, well, if I attach myself to this person, I won't feel bad anymore. And you do it, and then you realize you made a mistake. You know, there's a fix, but the real fix is to never get yourself in a position where you're acting out of desperation, when you're trying to, you know, stop the pain and suffering by attaching yourself to another person. It is better to start reviewing your thoughts, seeing how your negative attitude is contributing to that anguish and that angst, and how by changing your attitude, you can change your emotions and you can change your mood and you can start to enjoy your life. And life is about being at peace, but life is also about ambition because we do get bored if we stay stuck in one place. I think on this issue I covered it. So I thank you for listening and I wish you well.